Once again, this is a DIY of a Godox flash extension cable. This flash extension cable is primarily meant to serve as an extension for the Godox flashes, not the 360 or the 150 flash versions. I use the Godox TT600 flashes. Those are the flashes that use the 4 AA batteries. What we're looking at here, initially I purchased this Quantum Q49 10-foot extension cord from eBay. Here you can see that you could find it at Amazon, but it's sold by Adorama. Once again, this is eBay. This is the Quantum QT49. It's a 10-foot extension cord. I purchased this, and I'm using this as my template to follow to create my 15-foot Godox extension. Here on eBay, you can perform a search for this Quantum QT49, and here you also see that it's handled by Adorama, and then there's another seller that's selling it. The price, as you saw in Amazon, was for $56.95. I purchased mine on eBay and I really lucked out. I purchased the same cable just for $20, and it was new. You also see that I purchased the Godox, the PB-960 battery pack was also purchased from eBay. And along with that came the coiled 3-foot cable for the my flash, and it uses the Canon connector. We also see here I also purchased the power cable for the PB820 or the PB-960. They all fit exactly the same with the Canon connector. This cable will only give you, I believe, at most 3 feet, but the extension cable that we're going to create will give us an extra 15 feet. Now, I went to Amazon and I was able to find the 7-pin DIN male and female connectors. So to complete our DIY of this particular project, we will need to use at least a 7-pin DIN connector. And we'll see why in a minute. You can't use less than 7. You can use 7 to 8, but we'll see why 8 is not necessary. Here I also purchased the Godox, the AD-S14 extension power connector cable. Here it says it's specifically made for the Windstor, the AD-180 and the AD-360. I may have said the 150 series, but it's actually the 180 series and the 360. It's 5 meters, it's 15 feet long here, and I paid $15 for this particular cable, and it works out to be $1 per foot. I want to start with an OEM cord from Godox, and here it has the power connector that's specifically made for the AD-180 and the AD-360. Using my voltmeter and set to continuity, I then took the Quantum QT49 cable, which I believe the Godox system is based off of the Quantum system. And I used the cable here, and using my voltmeter set to continuity, I tested all the pins in this outer casing and all the pins on the female to see where they made it up. Here we're looking at the female end. We see that, and I'm counting from left round to the right, we have pins 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We see that there's also a place for a pin there, which I'm not sure, but I know usually, I believe it's usually in the middle for an 8th one. But here, we don't have to worry about that as long as we're using at least 7 pins. And the reason we're using 7 pins, and we see here on the male connector, counting once again from left to right, we see pin 1 is present and used, pin 2 is present and being used. Now, what I found is that pin 3 is present, but it's not being used. Pin 4 is not present, not used. Pin 5 is present and used. Pin 6 is not present and not used. Pin 7 is present and used, and pin 8 is not present and used. So in the Godox system, we're only using 3 wires. We're using red, yellow, and white. And we'll see in our diagram how all of these pins are tied together. We see that pin 1, pin 7, and this outer casing, which I'm calling a ground, those 3 are internally wired together. Pin 2, here I say it's positive. I don't know for sure or not. I'm just labeling this positive and 5 is negative. But what's important, we see that pin 2 is connected to a yellow wire, and pin 5 is connected to a white wire. We see that pin 3 is present but not used, so we're not going to be concerned with it. I'm not sure if the power pack uses that pin to detect the presence of the cable, because it does make a difference. Here we see on the female side that pin 1 mates up with pin 2, with pin 1 with pin 1, and pin 2 with pin 2, pin 5 with pin 5. Now notice that when we flip this over and these 2 are mated together, pin 1 and pin 2 is closest to each other. So here on the left of our male connector becomes pin 1 and pin 2 on the right of our female connector. Here pin 7 and pin 5 is on the right of the male. They become pin 7 and pin 5 on the left of the female. Okay, now I took my Godox AD-S14 extension power connector and I cut off that connector, because once again this is not the correct connector for the Canon power connector that's used by the Godox TT600 flash. Once I cut it off, we see that there's 3 wires. That red wire that went to pin 1, 7 and the ground, the yellow wire that went to pin 2, and the white wire that went to pin 5. Once again, just to recap, the red wire is tied to pin 1, 7 and the ground, that outer casing. Pin 1, pin 2 is tied to the yellow wire, and pin 5 is tied to that the 5th to pin number 5. This is what everything should look like afterwards. What I found, I used some shrink tubing to put over the casing where the wire clamps inside the casing that holds the wires. This outer wire, I used the shrink wrap to go over that clamps down on the wire, and to give it a bit of strain relief. Here I'm simply comparing it to the Quantum QT49 cable that I purchased on eBay for $20, and you'll notice that there's a warning high voltage. Trust me, when they say warning high voltage, it is very high voltage. I made the mistake of testing to make sure that everything was set up correct. I connected my power cable to my battery pack without putting on the outer casing, the protective outer casing, and my hand touched the bare metal, and believe me, I got a shock. If you have ever been shocked by 220 volts that comes out of a wall outlet, that's the feeling that you're going to get if you make this mistake that I did. Don't do it. Here I now plug just the cable into my my PB-960, and I turned it on. And here we have a red indicator light indicating that the power pack detected the presence of our cable. I believe that that's what that pin number 3 is possibly being used for. I then here I'm simply showing that I connected the cable. I plugged in, this is the cable plugged into the coiled cable for the that goes to the flash. That's the coil cable is the cable here on the left. Hence we can see the rest of the coil there. And we still have our red light indicating that the power pack detected the presence of the cable. Doesn't detect the presence of the flash, it detects the presence of the cable. Here I now have connected my Canon cable. It's in slave mode, so hence the red light there. I fired off full powered flashes using my test button. Everything worked perfectly. Everything recycled within a second. And here is the back display of the flash. I do wish that they would have maybe had an indicator on the back of the flash indicating that it was connected to external power. But everything went just absolutely perfect. Everything worked very well. So there you have it. Go out, and I hope this really helps, and I hope you have a lot of success.